Today we're going to work on the B-flat major scale. So B-flat starts not on B, which is a white note, but a half step lower, which is B-flat. You can follow the whole step, half step pattern. So if you start on B-flat, go a whole step higher, another whole step higher. This will get you any major scale. A half step higher, a whole step higher, a whole step higher, whole step, and half step. So that's your B-flat major scale. It looks like 3 black notes actually, but remember that B-flat, we only count B-flat once, even though you have a B-flat here and a B-flat here. So in the key signature, which I don't know if you can see this well here, but go to pianoclassroom.com and you can get a full PDF of all of the scales printed out. Here's the key signature, which are the flats in front of what you need. So they're only going to show 2 flats because they're not going to put, we don't put 2 B flats just because we happen to play 2 B flats in the scale. There's only 1 B flat on the key signature. So we say B flat major has 2 flats, but it feels like you're playing 3. So don't let that confuse you. Your 2 flats are B flat and E flat, and then you finish with B flat. And some of my students, if they're just, this is a side note, if you're writing for taking a test or anything on this, remember that as you're writing out your scale, don't forget to include that B flat for the last one. So the other thing is they'll think, okay, I've got the 2 flats, and they forget to include it for the last one. So here are your 2 flats, B flats and E flat. The rest are white notes. So you have a black note, 2 white notes, a black note, 3 white notes, and a black note. So we're actually going to start with the left hand because I usually start with the right hand, and we'll change it up a little bit. We'll move the left hand down here. The left hand's on B flat. It starts with your 3rd finger, and the fingering is 3, 2, 1. You cross over with your 4th finger, play 3, 2, 1 again, and cross over with your 3rd finger. Now some people will say to cross over with your 2nd finger, and some people will say it doesn't matter what finger you cross over to finish the scale. I've just found it's easier to keep the consistent fingering and the fingering consistent and correct. It makes less work in the future for you. So again, that's 3, 2, 1, and I'll chunk it, 3, 2, 1. Then cross your 4th finger over, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, and then back to 3. So the left hand scale is a lot of my students actually think that the B-flat scale is easier to play going from the top to the bottom because your thumb comes after the black note. So if we were to just start, pretend we've gone up, so now we're going down. So we're going to start with our middle finger on the black note. Your thumb automatically goes to the next note, which means, as you know, in a scale, we don't skip fingers. We will cross over and we will tuck under, but we won't go from, say, our 2nd finger to our 4th finger. We play in a row unless we're moving or pivoting or tucking under. So we have our 3rd finger here. Our thumb comes immediately after the black note, so our thumb on A. And you can flip your hand around. Each finger gets its own responsibility, its own job, its own note. So pointer on G, middle finger on F, 4th finger on E flat. And because that's a black note here on E flat, you know your thumb's going to go on D. And it's always a half step lower. So here's the 3rd finger B flat to your thumb. And later on, here's the 4th finger E flat to your thumb. So anyway, we have our black note middle finger. Now our thumb. Continue down. Now that we've played the black note, we tuck our thumb under and finish up the scale. So when my students are learning it, a lot of times they'll actually start from the top and go down from the top to the bottom to the top, which is not a bad way to practice anyway. In fact, it's a great way because anytime you change the way you practice, you incorporate your brain in different ways. it solidifies it more in your memory and your muscle memory. So starting from the top to go to the bottom and then the top again. So once they get comfortable going down, it just becomes a habit. You know that as soon as you play your thumb, you know it's going to be a black note. Now, the trick is to remember if it's your third finger or your fourth finger playing the black note. And that's where going down is easier, because once your thumb is on A, you have, if you can't actually, you have no other option. You have to put your fourth finger on B flat, because as I've said in my other videos, we're not allowed to put our thumbs on a black note when we're playing a scale. I mean, I know when I'm showing you all the scale notes and I'm holding them all out, I'll show you, you know, all the notes and I hold my thumb on a black note, but when you're actually playing a scale, we don't want any thumbs on black notes. Chords, yes. Scales, no. So when you have no other option, when your fourth finger is on E flat, your thumb is here on D. So as you're going up, it becomes a habit. You just remember your fourth finger is on E flat. So practice the left hand. If you haven't seen my other videos for other scales, I really encourage you to chunk those finger patterns where you play them all at once. And then you cross over as fast as possible to create muscle memory and to really land your fingers. You'll find yourself probably making mistakes because you're human, just like all of us. When we're first learning how to do these scales, we'll accidentally play, for example, we'll get these three notes correct, but as we flip over, we might put our middle finger on E instead of F. We won't cross over enough, so it sounds like this. It, you know, changes the notes. You accidentally play incorrect notes. So if you're chunking it, and you're making sure that you're using the actual correct notes and correct fingers and getting them there as quickly as possible, it creates nice strong muscle memory so that you can easily play any of the scales, including your B-flat major scale. So now the right hand starts on the fourth finger. You'll see books will actually, for example, in my PDF, I just have you start on 4. Sometimes they'll have a 2 or a 3 in parentheses, which means it's optional fingering, because truthfully, does it really matter what finger you start on? You're going to your thumb in your right hand, but it doesn't matter if you start with 4, 3, or 2. Not really, but I still, trust me when I say this, I recommend getting used to the correct fingering, because when you want to play multiple octaves or start really low and keep going up and then back down the piano, playing the B-flat major scale, it's helpful to just have the right way done. So you have, I mean, when you're doing multiple octaves, there are other things to think about. Why add something more that creates more work for yourself? So put your fourth finger in your right hand on B-flat. I understand this isn't the most comfortable tuck under it. Everyone feels a little awkward at first when you tuck under your fourth finger, but your fingering is after your 4, your right hand does 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember how the left hand, when there was a black note when you were going down, when there was a black note, your thumb went right after the black note and it was a half step lower, right? So from B flat to A, it was a half step. And then from E flat to D, it was a half step and your thumb went right after. Well, your right hand's sort of like that, but this time it's a whole step and it's going up. So the black note is here. Your right hand thumb needs to move not a half step. This is wrong. It needs to move a whole step. Remember, a whole step is when you skip one note. So it needs to move one whole step higher. So every time there's a black note, your thumb will come in. So if here's the black note, your thumb will come a whole step higher. If here's the black note, which it is, the thumb will come a whole step higher. So when you're putting hands together, as you can imagine, your brain starts having little meltdowns at first. Just go slower and I promise you will get it. So fourth finger first on the B flat, a whole step higher for the thumb. So you have 1, 2, 3. After the black note, a whole step higher for the thumb, and then you step up. to the B flat. Coming down, as long as you remember which finger to put on the black note, you are good to go. So if you remember that B flat is the fourth finger, so either way, bottom or top, B flat is the fourth finger, then you're left with 4, 3, 2, 1. Because in the scales, we always play to our thumbs, meaning we won't, when I say play to the thumbs, it means we continue stepping down in whatever the correct notes are till our thumb is the last one to play, and then we'll cross over. So I'm not gonna, for example, play to my second finger and then try to cross over, because we still have our thumb here and our thumb is very capable. We're gonna take advantage of the thumb. So fourth finger on B flat, coming down, so we start at the top, play all the rest of your fingers going to your thumb. If you can remember that the third finger goes on E flat, you're good to go. So for this scale, I like to think that they switch places, or they take turns. These fingers, the third and the fourth fingers are very friendly in this scale. The fourth finger gets to start, it gets to play the B flat, and because the fourth finger played the B flat, then it lets the third finger play the E flat. I don't know, whatever it takes to help you remember that your fourth finger has to go on B flat and your third finger has to go on E flat. So we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, then step back down, 3, 2, 1, and 4. And then when you're putting hands together, go slowly. When I was learning scales, I used to actually try to go fast. Probably drove my piano teacher crazy because I would get it wrong and I would go back and fix it. Well, that just creates incorrect muscle memory, and I just made more work for myself, which she did tell me, and it took me a while, but I finally learned that lesson. So I highly recommend doing it correctly the first time. What that means is play your first notes, make sure you have your correct fingers, and even if the sound of the note dies out, do not let go of your notes. Now, you tell yourself, or you talk to yourself and you say, okay, left hand, second finger is gonna play C. Make sure it knows it's gonna play C. Then you say thumb, right hand is gonna play C. When both fingers are ready to press down and no other finger is gonna accidentally press down, that's when you play the next note. Then you flip over. Right here, these flip overs, this is where we easily will flip and we'll skip our pointer finger. See how my pointer finger hasn't been used? That's not good, we don't do that. So this is where you check your work. You make sure your pointer finger is on D. See, there's no sound coming from the C anymore. That does not matter, because the point isn't that we're playing the scales really fast. You're learning them. So once you have the correct fingering, so I have my 2 on D, I have in my right hand, I have my thumb in my left hand on D, then you play. And you keep going like that, and it's truly a test of discipline, but let me tell you, if you can practice this way, in no time you will be playing much faster. And the B-flat major scale is great for anytime you're playing with brass players, especially trumpet players, trombone, baritone, euphonium, tuba. They are usually written in the key of B-flat. Concert bands, wind bands, so jazz bands for sure. So this is a really common scale. It's great to know.